Perfect. Thanks, Hey, everyone. I am Ben from Audiologic. I head up the technical side of the business. As a distributor, we like to do things a little bit differently. As the name would suggest, we are very much based in the audio side of things. But we're much more involved with the designing of systems, the commissioning of systems. We basically do everything other than actually physically putting the boxes in, which is where our customers come in and work with various integrators, which we've got a few here today. As you can probably tell from the name of my presentation, the quickest and easiest way to networked audio is from a random generated title of presentations. Second choice was how to do networked audio better than Barack Obama, which didn't quite make enough sense, I think. But today I'm just going to talk about the benefits of putting everything on the network from the audio side. So Mark's fantastically covered the video side of things, and yeah, hopefully I'll address the audio side. Before I start, a very, very quick run through of the history of audio and how we've actually ended up where we are today. The first ever recording back in 1857, a Mr. Scott, way, long time ago, was the first recording ever made. We've got no copies of this. This wasn't actually designed to be listened to. He never foresaw that people would actually listen back to things. Why would you want to do that? So this was actually read. You could read the trace lines, but you could never actually listen to it. The first ever recorded sound that we could play back was a song called Claire de Lune, which back in 1860, this recording still exists today. I've got a copy if anyone wants to hear it. As you can imagine, it sounds awful. You can barely make out what's going on, but it's a guy singing into a very, very early device and recording onto a medium, which is very, very cool. Mr. Thomas Edison, you may know him for various different reasons, but he's also credited with a massive advancement in terms of the audio recording and audio playback. In 1877, his talking machine and phonograph was the first device ever to be able to record a sound and play it back. So obviously we've come a long way from them, but yeah, he massively advanced the audio side of things. 1881, out in France, we had the first ever stereo system. The local opera house in Paris used the telephone system, the twin pair, to transmit out a live recording, a live broadcast of the opera that was going on. So you could remote in at home, connect to this system, and listen in both ears, listen to the live opera going on in the Paris Opera House, which was down the road, which is crazy. I mean, obviously we listen to things on the phones all day, every day, but I can't even imagine the first time this happened. Back in 1881, sat in your lounge, listening to a stereo feed from the local opera house via two telephones. I mean, crazy concept, but crazy cool. 1910, we started transitioning to different physical mediums. So we took the wax cylinders, we saw a lot less of them. We started moving towards the gramophone. 1920 to 1930, we really started committing to the shellac and vinyl discs. Any vinyl heads here? Good man. Good man. We like to see some vinyl. A technology or a medium, I should say, that's still going on today. 1945 was the next big advancement. The Germans, as with a lot of inventions, developed this in World War II, kept it all to themselves, and at the end of the World War we started seeing magnetic tape really introduced. This allowed us to start recording different ways, suddenly start doing multiple channels and using a lot less physical medium. Tape was fairly cheap to produce, we could store a lot of data on there, and suddenly we're looking at much longer recording lengths. 1962, the good old cassette, long may it rain. I've seen bands starting to do cassettes again these days, which is really cool, but just impractical. It was never a great medium, but I quite like the idea of collecting cassettes anyway. 1977, the Japanese do things very well. Sony introduced the PCM1, which was the first commercially available analog to digital converter and digital to analog converter. This was an insanely expensive device, but for the first time ever, we had digital recorded media. This moved on fairly quickly. 1982, we saw the mediums getting much smaller, and we had the compact disc, which we could fit an entire album on something very, very slim. And the first time we really saw digital audio start taking off and getting into the home commercial market. The famous tagline, fit 1,000 songs in your pocket from iPod, standardization of MP3 in 1992. And still a bit strange and semi-off topic, but we're still using MP3s today, which is bonkers. We've got so much bandwidth and 5G and home Wi-Fi speeds that are crazy, and we're still using a fairly low bandwidth, lossy compression format, which is crazy. But if anyone wants to rant about MP3 with me later on over a beer, definitely take me up on that. And since then, we've lived in the digital age. Nothing's really done. I mean, obviously we've changed. We've gone from 1,000 songs in our pockets to, I don't even know the figures of what's on Spotify these days. But we've stayed very much in the digital domain. The formats have fairly much stayed the same, but we're very much rooted in digital. The next step, what we have done, although we haven't necessarily changed formats, what we have changed is the medium. So now, rather than just looking at moving songs from place to place, suddenly we're starting to bring things onto the network. And the medium we're using today is obviously cat cables. this is brilliant for us. Everything becomes much simpler. Mark summed it up perfectly. It's so easy for us to use this infrastructure. In terms of audio capabilities, 512 by 512 channels of Dante is available down a single gigabit link at approximately maximum capacity. So although the video guys talk about huge bandwidths to do 4K video and things like that, with audio we just simply don't use that much, at least not yet, and I don't see in the coming years really a need for us to move over to 10 gig. But as the technology gets cheaper, of course, we will eventually end up on 10 gig networks. But for now, a gigabit bandwidth is absolutely fine for us. It's bi-directional. We're not sending analog audio just in one direction anymore and then just hoping it gets to where it goes. We can receive the information back. It's inputs and outputs. We get remote monitoring, just tons and tons of benefits. And we can terminate it on site. Yay. No more soldering irons, very rarely. Even in terms of standards, we've kind of standardized on that. So going back a little bit, we had standards such as CobraNet, AVB, AES67, Dante. It's pretty hard, even if you're from the video world, to have not heard of Dante these days. They've kind of reigned supreme because it's such an easy-to-use format. It's so capable, and the chipset modules were so easily to come by. So to turn devices into networked audio devices, the device is nearly pretty much the same, and you just put a simple module in there that's converting the digital traffic and transporting it over the network using a protocol. So CobraNet's pretty much gone now. AVB, there's rumors that it's going to come back and rule the world. It still does things in live, but for the sort of markets that we're talking about today, Dante definitely reigns supreme. So what devices have we got on the network? The first step we saw was digital signal processors. They look after so much of what we do. They were the first thing to really make sense to bring onto Dante. So we very much brought them on first. But since then, we're seeing more and more devices come on the network and actually further through the audio signal path. We've got the Yamaha RMCG here today. This is a multi-channel networked microphone that lives in the ceiling and will automatically track you as you walk around the room. So you don't even need to do what I'm doing and hold a microphone and think about how you're presenting. This is then on the network. We're not worrying about preamps or anything like that. Straight away, it's just spitting Dante audio out. So I can pick that up from any of my devices and say, great, here's my microphone, multiple channels of it, and I'm covering the entire room with one network microphone. All the way through to the other side, we've now got speakers on the network as well. So these are both transducers, microphones and loudspeakers. They're just turning one form of energy into a different form of energy. Basically, inverse of each other. You can use a speaker as a microphone, and you can use a microphone as a speaker, which always sounds weird. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, surely not, but it can be done. We've also got Genelec here today. So Genelec Smart IP speakers are a PoE Dante-based loudspeaker. So again, powered off the network. And people think that that limits in terms of output or possibly sound quality. This has the exact same components in it as the rest of the Genelec range. So for those of you that aren't aware, really, really high quality studio monitors used for broadcast, recording, tons of markets. But this is an install-based product now. It becomes so easy. We're not running huge amplifier racks that are using a load of heat and a load of energy, running speaker cable and daisy chaining and paralleling all our cables. Suddenly, all of our speakers can go on the network, and they're powered straight off the network switch. So we're seeing more and more of the audio signal path sort of come to life on the network. What does this mean for us? You're going to hear these benefits all throughout the day. We've definitely got running themes here. Simplicity in design. Being an audio engineer in the design world, you could argue is getting simpler because all of the devices on the network, we're not having to worry about so many standards or cable types, or we've all seen pictures of connector on connector on connector on connector, and audio used to be awful for that. But chuck it on the network, it's going to work. We can route it from A to B. Getting much, much simpler. Scalability and shared infrastructure. For us to add more speakers onto the network or more microphones becomes really, really easy. Suddenly the director says, I want another boardroom down the corridor. Fine, expand your network switch if you need to. Really easy. I hope you've all seen Monsters Inc. Otherwise, this is a bit of a weird slide to have. But always watching Mike Wazowski. Remote visibility and management. So yes, we're simplifying a lot of things. But actually, from an engineering and a support side, we can now see how all of our devices are behaving. We can get real-time feedback. We can trigger devices to send emails, and we could make that set off an alarm on our fridge or anything to off of any one device going down. We can sort of monitor all this now and be much, much smarter in our support. As a business, we can get real-time alerts to when one of our integrators is having a problem and let them know before the end user even knows. Oh, in your boardroom, you've lost a pair of speakers. Someone might have cut through some cables, or a network switch has gone down. Can the on-site team go and check that out? With things like universities, where you've got entire campuses now using audio, networked audio, this becomes absolutely brilliant because you can just send people where they need to be. Imagine going around individual rooms to check everything's working every day across a university campus. It'd be near on impossible. So this allows us to be much smarter and much more intelligent in what we do. So in terms of today's event, as you guessed, everything is running on a network. We've got some Netgear switches back there, which I'll let everyone else from Netgear talk about. All of the audio devices are sat on the network, so I'm simply using Dante controller and routing from device to device. These speakers, the VXL 16Ps we've got here, are Dante PoE, as you would have guessed. Everything from the wireless mics to the background music feeds all end up on the network, and I can simply, in a cross-point matrix, decide where all of our devices go. So there's lots of cat cabling everywhere. Please no one slip over. But yeah, we'll be running demonstrations. Later on, we'll be listening to the Gen X, which are awesome speakers, and we'll prove that just running on PoE is definitely plenty loud enough for most use case scenarios. But yeah, we'll be listening to a few devices later on.